Hi and welcome. So, this is a bit different for me. I recently showed a friend my reorderable list setup, and even before I managed to drag a single card around, he asked me if that could be used for a card battle system. Which is such a good example for where to use my tutorial, it irked me to no end I hadn't thought about it myself. So, thanks to Thetra, you'll get a short example for how you can use the reorderable list system I showed off in the previous tutorial. This builds on top of it, and it doesn't change a single line of code inside of it. All the groundwork was already laid. I'll show you the general structure I used and how the system interconnects with a few basic examples. It's good enough to give an idea of what you can do, and I am very sure you'll figure out how to fill in the blanks. The foundation consists of the two scripts draggable item and reorderable list. You can see how to build these in the previous tutorial, or if you're just here for a quick solution, get the project files for this over on my Ko-fi page. What you see on screen are just 9 short scripts. Really, most of the work is in the list system, not this one. It starts with the definition of a skill. I have one for earth, one for air, and one for fire, for example. They are skill definitions and of the scriptable object variety. These skill definitions come with the typical entries like damage, name, description, icon, and the effect to instantiate, as well as the name of the animation state to play. These skills live on the draggable objects. The previous system just had an image to display as the contents. This time, it's an actual card with an image, 3 TMP fields, and the skill it refers to. That last one really is only available via the inspector, so I can see while building how texts and images will be presented in the game. Cards need to be bound to skills, after which they update their UI entries to display what the skill is all about. This is the basic for the skill. Now we'll have to make sure we have something to use them in, the battle system. It starts with the character animation controller, which really only has a single task. Play the name of an animation I added to the animator with a bit of a crossfade to make it look less sudden. This is attached to the player object in the scene. The opponent is a bit more complex, but only because I haven't put in any opponent attacks player logic at this stage, since I try to keep this small and easy to explain without repeating myself a lot. The opponent has a maximum amount of hit points, an animator, 3 different animations it can play, and again a bit of a crossfade. Awake copies the max health to the current workable health value. Take damage does what it says it does. Deal damage as long as the opponent isn't already dead. If they die, it plays the dead animation, otherwise it shows the hit animation. In case our opponent is dead, we are going to revive it. It is a skeleton after all, via the respawn method. This is probably where a stand-up animation would look nice, instead of jumping straight into idling again. Ah, well. Since you most likely want your player to be able to take damage as well, you can copy a lot of this over to the character controller. The battle handles how the fight plays out, arguably kinda one-sided here. It has references to the player and the opponent, as well as the transform for where to spawn the effects in. That is an empty object at the foot of the opponent in this case. It also handles the turn logic, keeping track of if it is the player's or the opponent's turn with a simple enum, and sends out notifications when this changes. Use skill is what's going to be called when you drag a card from your hand onto the scenery. It spawns in the effect and makes sure it is destroyed once the effect's main duration is over. At the same time, the opponent takes the damage set up inside the skill effect, while the player plays the referenced animation. If there is one thing I tinker on more in this system, it's probably the timing. Having everything play out at once is a bit rough, feeling-wise. Finally, it ends the player's turn and starts running the opponent's one. When and how you handle that is up to you. You can add it here or have a different script that checks for the player turn ended event to play out whatever you want your opponents to do. I just wait for 3 seconds before starting the player's next turn as a bit of a placeholder. This now brings us to the card hand, which is the bridge between what we have in our hand, which is the reorderable list, and the battle. It is also probably the most complex script, which is kinda cute, seeing as it is hardly even 50 lines of code long. It references battle and the deck, which is just a list of skill definitions we store on the component. My deck is rather basic, seeing as it only has 3 different skills. The UI references go to the reorderable list and the prefab of one of its entries. Don't link up any of the scene objects here. The cards in hand refer to a canvas group, which we need to enable and disable its block's raycast ability based on if it is the player's turn or not. This keeps the player from dragging cards into the game while it's not their turn. On enable and on disable subscribe and unsubscribe to the load-bearing event of the draggable item, on being removed. As a reminder, that's the event at the bottom of the draggable object script that gets invoked when the object is dragged out of the list and after it is done scaling down to 0. It is static since there really is only ever a single effect in use, and this makes it easy to subscribe to. Handle card played is what's being executed once the card poofs into the nothing. It grabs the skill card from its child object, uses the corresponding skill, then draws a new card. I'm typically hesitant to use get component calls at runtime, but really, this is one call every time I play a card. This will only become a problem once the profiler shouts at me because of it, and I doubt it will. Drawing a card just picks a card at random, creates a new card, finds its skill card once more, so yes, okay, there are 2 calls. If you're worried about it, add a reference to the skill card itself to the draggable item, bind the card it picks to it, then adds it to our hand. This is already all the battle system needed at this point, so the next 2 are primarily to give more visual feedback. Damage display does what it says it does. It takes a label, which is a 3D object for once, since I wanted to have a bit of a perspective on it, a duration, a height to where it moves the label, and an animation curve to fade the text out over time. Resets make sure the component prepares itself, and on enable and on disable, subscribe and unsubscribe to the opponent's on damage taken event. It's again a static one, due to it being so simple, but you could also just as well create a reference to the opponent in question at the top and keep it non-static. Awake keeps track of the start position and fades the label out to 0. Shout damage stops any running coroutine, then starts a new one, which first sets the label text to the damage number. Why this strange syntax? Because I wrote a 520-page book on TextMesh Pro and talked about garbage allocation and performance in its last chapter, and this was a neat treasure to write about. The book is available on my Ko-fi, Itch and Gumroad, and you can find out more about it in the linked website in the first comment. Back to the program. This while loop fades and moves the label up, then the alpha is set to 0 and the label placed back into its origin position. The last script is the opponent respawner. It initializes the respawn delay wait in awake, then it subscribes to the opponent's on death. When that event happens, it just ticks down the wait time until it reaches 0, then respawns the opponent. How can creating a whole tiny game prototype be faster to explain than creating the reorderable list? Like, seriously. I had a lot of fun with this, and I seriously hope you enjoyed this walkthrough. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing, and maybe give me a comment about it. Are you working on a card game? Anything you're struggling with in particular? Also, leave a comment. Thank you for watching. Have a great week.